Still deciding if you want to see Longlegs or just looking for some commentary after it? Well, I'm about to review it and give you my opinion, so tune in, crew, let's hop into it. Longlegs, directed by Oz Perkins, follows the story of new FBI agent Lee Harker, who shows signs of an almost supernatural gift to catch criminals. As a result, she is assigned to an unsolved serial killer case with minimal evidence. From there, Lee is faced with puzzles, personal trauma, and a perplexing case as she tries to find the killer with the call sign, Longlegs. You put all that together, sprinkle in some really good performances, some good cinematography, and hey, we've got ourselves a horror movie. So I was really excited for this one. I think, like most of us, we saw the marketing campaign coming up to it, and I've got to say, whether that was Neon or whoever the marketing agency that did all of that was, big green tick, like, way to go. You did such a good job of building the hype and interest and fandom around this movie that I didn't know what I was going into, but I was really excited. Now, I'm not sure if it was all rosy though, because whilst I was really excited, when that happens, it does open yourself up for potentially being underwhelmed. So I was really trying to keep myself level in the sense that I didn't want to go in thinking it was going to be the greatest, most revolutionary horror of all time, because you're just setting yourself up for failure. However, I fear that some others may have done that, and I reckon that's something that this film will get a lot of, is a lot of people coming in with the most hype possible, but not necessarily backing that up with what they saw on screen. Not to say it was a bad film, I actually really liked it, and I'm about to break that down for you. One thing quickly, this is going to be a spoiler review to some degree, so if you haven't seen it, maybe hold off or maybe skip to the end to see my rating, but if you have seen it, yeah, then buckle in, let's go chat about it. So starting with the score, I did want to say it was coordinated really well. It hit all the checkpoints that you would want from a horror score. It made you feel certain things, it jump scared you when it needed to jump scare you, it built tension and made you feel suspense when you needed to as well. So in that sense, really well done. But I will say it didn't necessarily feel all that original, and that's not a knock. It's clear that whoever created this score has done a really good job studying other horror films that they've liked and putting things together to what they think would suit the movie. But I felt like after I left the movie, I kept thinking on it, and even as I was sitting in there, I felt a lot of similarities to certain tension builds from the score in terms of the movie Cure by Kiyoshi Kurosawa, and that came through in other aspects of the film as well, but I really felt it on certain scenes where Harker is either studying or looking into the killer, and we're alone with her and we're building tension. You feel this deep bubbling sort of just like white noise in the background building. It felt very reminiscent of a lot of the scenes in Cure where the killer would ignite his lighter and they would play a certain sound to cue you into, obviously, his hypnosis, and it just felt very similar in that sense. I felt like that's why I probably scored it down a little bit on the score, is because I just could feel the influences from other things in a good way. Absolutely, I must say, in a good way, but not necessarily original. I've got to say, on a visual element, the filming was awesome. I thought it was a very professional job, very clean, everything that you would want in a horror. And the specific thing I really wanted to comment on was the way they put the camera in places that made you feel uncomfortable. A lot of horror movies, especially today, can rely on the shock factor or the shock element or a scream or a jump scare to really make you feel something, but something that a lot of really good horror movies do is make you feel scared before that, or make you feel uncomfortable in a way where your mind does all the horror movie tropes that it needs, and your mind is the thing that convinces you something's about to happen. And I think displayed really well from certain scenes, especially if I can refer to one in Harker's house where they just put the camera in a certain spot where you can see the room behind her, you can see that it's dimly lit. It doesn't mean that anything's going to happen, but your mind takes you places. It can't help but wonder to what's going to happen. The shots of her house where you can see that she's looking out windows into the unknown abyss, it creates that really unsafe feeling and that fear and doubt. And so I think they did that really well, and I was really pleased with a lot of the shots that they had in the film. From an acting standpoint, I think everybody's performances were quite solid, which is really nice to not have any lagging parts or any annoying people that necessarily feel out of place. rightfully so, Nick Cage is getting a lot of credit for his performance as Longlegs. However, for me, the standout was Micah Monroe. I really enjoyed the weird, recluse, socially awkward offset character, and I really like how she built into that and really committed to the bit. She's clearly got a real talent for horror films. Personally, I would actually love to see her branch out now, though, because I actually think she has real talent, and I would love to see what sort of diversity she has in her bag as she continues to go on with her acting career. On Nick Cage's character, tied in with the plot, that's where I really wanted to talk, and that's where I had my reservations and took issue with a few things. So, to give context, in part 1 we get given this download of Longlegs the serial killer, and he or she is portrayed as this big mystery, this complex character that, has gotten away with all these murders, has never left a trace, and is really, really good at what they're doing. And I think if I was to summarize the character after watching part 1, you would assume that Longlegs, or what we'd been told, was that Longlegs was really calculated. Now, as the film went on further and we met Longlegs and we got a little more understanding of who Longlegs was and what his motives were, it felt less and less like he was calculated and more like he was, quite honestly, just a bit of a satanic lunatic. Now, that isn't necessarily a bad thing. I think there is plenty of places for a satanic lunatic villain to be and be part of movies, but it just felt inconsistent with what we got to start and what the build-up was to his character. And so when I said before, I really liked Cage's performance for the character he was given, I felt like there was probably not enough freedom. I saw some comparisons saying this was like Hannibal Lecter, but a little bit darker, but that's not actually what Longlegs was or who he was as a killer, so it felt a little bit misguided in that sense. The other thing that I would have really liked to see adapted or changed with the plot was this thing that it is very common across a lot of films. I just giving too much context or being overly obvious with a few things early on in a film. For people that go to a lot of films, or for people who like to forward think, etc., if you telegraph things too early, it can potentially not spoil the whole film, but spoil some things that are going to happen later down the track. And the two things I'm thinking of specifically that I really took issue with was the fact that very early on we get the plot, we get the understanding that the serial killer kills on certain birthdays and dates, and then we're subjected to a phone call with her mum where she's like, your birthday's coming up soon, like sort of just throwing it out there, like, why do we need to know about her birthday? I wonder why that's important. And then the second part was when he goes to meet Agent Carter's family, and he's sitting there and the daughter Ruby was like, can she come to my birthday party? It's like, okay, I don't necessarily know what's going to happen, but I know something bad's going to happen on her birthday, and I'm willing to bet that it's linked into the whole plot in terms of the killer and birthday. So look, that's minor and it's maybe potentially a personal gripe. The way I would have loved to see them do it, though, is not give us that context early, or not have to use the phrasing of birthdays. Part of me thinks because the birthday plot didn't necessarily have the effect it wanted from a Agent Carter's family perspective, if when Harker wakes up near the end and she, instead of answering the phone, maybe wakes up, goes upstairs to call Carter to say that she realizes that her mum's in on it, she could then just hear from him that he sounds hypnotized or he sounds under the spell, and then all of a sudden, for all of us in a collective, it would click and we go, oh, he's got that family. I think that would have been potentially a better way to delve into that or go about it, and it would have had the same effect, and actually the movie would have still gone to the same place and had the same result. So yeah, with all of that being said, you can see right now, hopefully in front of you, my scoreboard. I'm giving this one a 73 out of 100, and you can see individually how I've scored the categories of how I sort of formulate my decisions. If you made it this far, thank you. Please let me know what you thought of the film. Let me know any insights that you've seen or any of the thoughts that you had. I love to hear from people about it. I love to just talk and discuss film. And again, you can see it through my name. I'm not necessarily a critic. I'm just literally someone that loves to chat about films. So please get amongst it. If you had any thoughts, if you had any ways you think it should have gone, leave your comments below, and please like the video. All right, crew. Until next time, I'm not a critic, just someone who loves films.